Okay, I think I'm recording this, so I'm doing the best I can. Y'all please forgive me. All right, screen two and share. All right, perfect. All right, so Samantha Sullivan. Hey, classmates. I know we did a video at the very beginning of the semester, but it's time to do a new one at the end of this semester. I guess we've come full circle. So what I want to do now is present my resources to you. You can see the screen. This is my PowerPoint that I created, the 5 best, because, this is the 5 best. So looking at what I did with each one, I want to give you an idea of like what I chose and why I chose them. So let's go with my first one here. This one is, the title is Putting Rural Readers on the Map, Strategies for Rural Literacy. So the reason I chose this to be in my top 5 is this is actually one of the resources that I did my very first resource overview on. And I guess it's been a while since I've been in school, and I wasn't expecting a resource to be so helpful, so practical, so pertinent. I teach in a very rural area in Coshada, Louisiana, and so and I picked, of course, this based on the title, but I thought rural readers interesting, and let me see what it's really talking about. And the 2 strategies that the author uses here, Laura Lester, is 2 research-based strategies. One is called, I'm sorry, I'm actually going back to my article, Resource Overview. One is place-based education, and the other one is virtual field trips. And she kind of starts with a vignette where she gives a teacher's name and kind of gives a rundown of an experience that these kids had and what it did to bolster literacy development in such a rural area where there is a high rate of poverty and illiteracy and things like that. You can see here on my PowerPoint, these are 2 quotes from the article. It says, through PBE, which is place-based education, students can make connections in their learning as they naturally investigate and expand their comprehension of information and text. And then the second one there, it says, recognizing the uniqueness of rural communities is the first step in moving forward in providing effectively and culturally relevant instruction for students. And so I guess what I liked about this one the most is the author, Laura Lester, and I actually can screen share her article by pulling it up right here. Putting rural readers on the map. And you can find this on NSU's databases, by the way. So in this article here, she grew up, you can see the author grew up in a small town in Virginia. And, of course, like everybody, she moves to a bigger town and then eventually comes back home to teach. And she saw that, when she came home to teach, it was so different from what she experienced in the big city. Of course, it was the way she grew up, but there was kind of that disconnect. In here, she talks about her fond memories of her school experience, but it was different now that she was an adult going back to that same school experience, but as a teacher this time. And you can see some of the major quotes chosen from this article. Rural issues are simply not on the radar screen. We don't think about the lack of books, libraries, and I don't want to just say like literacy is in books, but even technology literacy, things like that, health literacy, and how many of these students in rural areas are at risk for academic difficulties and a disadvantage. And of course, there's this huge brain drain that happens because a lot of educated people, they leave these rural areas and go into the city. So with her article, some of the things she does here is introduce place-based education. And I loved it because she talks about the Appalachian Mountains in here and how a teacher creates a lesson that really respects the idea of place. Here, now this example is a little bit below us. This is a 3rd grade example here and the social studies standards that it meets. But I love the vignettes that she gives that really, as it says, this vignette illustrates an example of a teacher who provided a learning experience that helps students realize the value of their surroundings and enhance their knowledge of the community and contributed to the development of reading, writing, and oral language skills. So I just love that. And then, with my students, another big issue is I want to teach them to appreciate where they're from and the rural area that they're from, but I want to expose them to other things. And sometimes there's a lack of funds to be able to do that. And so a good way to do that is the virtual field trips that this is the second thing she mentions in her article. What I love about our article is that it gives websites for things to access for these virtual field trips. I often take students on virtual field trips of my own by doing college and industry-based field trips, where I expose students to colleges not only in the state of Louisiana, but from around the country, since I have seniors. So that can be pretty important. I want to expose them to those things. So if you want to take a look at this article, you can find it on NSU's library databases in Academic Search Complete, and you can get the full text source there. So now that we looked at that, of course, we have to look at Donalyn Miller, the book whisperer. So looking at her, I was first exposed to Donalyn Miller at a NSU National Writing Project conference, and she is one of the most down-to-earth people. You know, I was able to get a signed copy of her text, and you know, I kind of put it to the side for a while, not knowing who Donalyn Miller was, her importance in, you know, as a reading teacher, and the things she had to share. So one day, as I'm going through things, I pick up her book and started reading it, and I fall in love with it completely. And you know, she is definitely really big in writing project circles. So not only do I have this book, but I also have this one, the Reading in the Wild. And I actually put both texts in my annotated bibliography. And what I love about this one, you know, she almost is like this hippie flower child, you know, this idea of reading in the wild and growing wild readers. What I love about her is that both books give such common sense approaches. It's like it's this novel idea, but it's not. They're so common sense, you know. So anyway, this is Reading in the Wild, and like I said, I included this one. This is from the Washington Post, as you can see, article entitled "Getting Kids to Read: The 5 Key Habits of Lifelong Readers," and they use Donalyn Miller's book, which is not the one I'm actually covering. But I just wanted to show you that small girl from Texas who really does a lot to push her students to be lifelong readers and fall in love with reading. She's coming up in the Washington Post. So definitely a good thing there. She's got to get her props, got to give her a shout out. But anyway, the book I'm actually covering is this one, Donalyn Miller's The Book Whisperer, Awakening the Inner Reader in Every Child. So like I said, I first met her at a National Writing Project conference, actually at Northwestern. She's from Texas, so it wasn't that far for her to come. What I love about her text is that there are anecdotes, student writing samples, instructional strategies, graphic organizers, an outline of like the type of readers you can have. For example, she'll give a name, you know, the Bobs of reading, the Janets of reading, that kind of thing. And she kind of describes a student, of course, it's a fake name, and she talks about what kind of reader they are. You know, the kind of student that has passed along with B's and done very, very well, but really struggles when it comes to reading comprehension and kind of hides that beneath the surface, that kind of thing. And so she'll attribute certain names with the type of reader. And as teachers, when we're reading our text, it is so easy to recognize those students because we all teach them. So they're very easily recognizable. Let's see, what else did I put in my annotated bibliography? Oh, that this is great for pre-service teachers and veteran teachers alike. You know, if you already have something that you're doing in your classroom as far as literacy goes, there are so many common sense approaches in here that can work regardless of content area, whether you're social studies, science, even ELA. Now, don't get me wrong, she spends a lot of time on delivering a chapter on, you know, developing your classroom library, but it doesn't matter if you're a science teacher. You know, get those biographies and autobiographies of scientists in there. You know, even in my content, I teach ELA, and there's a unit that I do on Henrietta Lacks and her cells and her contribution to science. I actually love that, and the biology teacher and I partner on a lot of things. And we are able to take things from both of our classroom libraries and share them when she's doing her unit on cells and I'm doing my unit on Henrietta Lacks, because there's so much overlap that takes place in that. Like I said, in my annotated bibliography, there are some circles that don't praise her, because it's kind of this hippie thing, like, is she going to get to the bottom line? For most schools, the bottom line is SPS, school performance scores, test scores, things like that. What I love about Donalyn Miller is that if you really incorporate what she's got in the text as a teacher, test scores are going to follow anyway. If you develop your classroom library, if you are helping kids set goals for their own reading, for keeping them accountable, those kind of things, for their reading development, you are going to see an increase of test scores. You're going to see that. And so that's what I love about her text is, some people may say, oh, that's just a bunch of fluff. No, it's not. It has real life implications that it's really going to affect your classroom and your students' performance. So that's what I like about her text. So even though I didn't do wild readers, I did want to show you that one. My third one of my third favorite here is Kelly Gallagher's Write Like This. And I actually got a copy of his text. You can see my copy right here where I've got, note cards and things in here. This is actually something that I use in the classroom quite a bit. I think my favorite part of this text, I was actually also introduced to his text at a National Writing Project conference. All the greats always seem to come from National Writing Project. Anyway, what I love about this is there are so many, as you look through here and see the figures that he includes, there's not one chapter that has something that you can't use. There's so much in here. There is so much that I actually use in my classroom on a day-to-day basis on any kind of writing. I don't know how well you can see this, but this deals with claims, evidence, and reasoning. When I'm teaching writing, it's a struggle sometimes to help my students make a logical paragraph to respond to what they're reading. And one way I do that is through CER, claims, evidence, and reasoning. I teach them, CER. And you can see at the bottom it says adapted from Kelly, Gallagher Kelly, Kelly 2011, Write Like This. So even the graphic organizers I use in my classroom every day come from his text. This text has helped me so much in the classroom. And aside from his academic writing, if you just want kids to do something and get something on paper, I can't tell you how many times I've used things like his 6-word memoirs, the student encyclopedia, where you may choose a topic and the students have to create an encyclopedia, A through Z, and they have to have a couple entries for each, and it can be on anything: toys, writing strategies, literacy strategies, C is for Cabbage Patch Kid, if you're doing toys, what have you. Those are some of the most fun assignments I've used, and it gets kids writing every day, and that's what I love about it. So as you can see, hence from the title, teaching real world writing through modeling and mentor text. It's always big for me to make sure that I model what I want the kids to do, and also give some kind of exemplar, given a mentor text, whether it be an article or whatever. A lot of times we have our students respond to what they're reading. Well, if what they're reading is the mentor text, that works out pretty perfectly. So he is definitely the writing teacher guru. One of the things I love about Kelly Gallagher himself is, and we've kind of read this and responded to some of it in our forums, but he doesn't really, he's about the child and the whole child and not about test scores. And what I love about him, though, is through what he talks about in this text, if you are using this for your students' writing, test scores are going to follow anyway. You don't have to constantly teach the test in order to get your students' writing scores and reading scores and test scores to improve. So that's one thing I do love about him. Some of the things that I put in my annotated bibliography is that each chapter in this text has a different style of writing, as you would expect with a writing textbook, you know, writing for different purposes, writing to inform, writing to persuade, that kind of thing. But one thing I said in my annotated bib is his text does not give the same old spiel about the 5-paragraph essay, but outlines many different strategies that can be used in any content area. Table topics, square peg round hole, 6-word memoir, encyclopedias, you know, things like that, where the students are actually creating things and writing and responding to things, where it all doesn't have to be heavily burdened academic language. You know, it gives the kids to respond through their thinking, you know, with their thinking. And so that's definitely something that I like about him. And of course, you know, you can't get away from Kelly Gallagher without mentioning things like Article of the Week. You know, I actually first found out about Article of the Week when I was involved in National Writing Project's College Ready Writers Program. And that's when I was first introduced to Kelly Gallagher, and I noticed an improvement. You know, keeping portfolios is an awesome thing, especially when you go from the beginning of the year to the end, and you can see how much your students have progressed. That is one of the best things. And something that I saw that helped make a lot of progression was Kelly Gallagher's Article of the Week. And when you use these articles, what I love about it is that he has discussion questions posted through here, like for example with this one, mark your confusion, show evidence of a close reading, and then often at the end it'll have, like here it says possible response questions. So he gives, oh, and of course this one's good, I just see something that kind of provides a segue into my next one. Discuss a move made by the writer in this piece that you think is good or interesting. So if you have not checked out Kelly Gallagher's Article of the Week, please do that. There are so many good sources in there for middle school and high school teachers. So looking at that question, discuss a move by the writer, that brings me into my next source, which is Joseph Harris's rewriting. And so I actually got a copy of this also from National Writing Project. If you look at my PowerPoint slide here, it mentions the Harris moves, illustrating, authorizing, borrowing, and extending. I actually have a poster that I keep in my classroom that talks about the Harris moves. Now, with my poster here, I don't know if you can see, the one on the bottom is a bit different. It says countering. So at my school, we use a little bit different language, illustrating, authorizing, extending, and countering. Now, the one that you see in front of you says borrowing. Countering kind of takes kids to the next level to make that counter argument in their writing. What I love about Joseph Harris's text and the writing moves and the Harris moves, like I said, it's something that I learned about through National Writing Project. I was involved in their I3CRWP grant, where I had writing project people come in and they gave this assessment, okay, an on-demand writing prompt, and the kids wrote. And I got the chance to grade it, and Writing Project helped me, you know, go through to see the best way to assess these kids. And we did, and I saw what level they were actually at based on National Writing Project's rubric. And, you know, seeing where my students were and where I wanted them to be, I thought, how am I going to get them there? And then we started going into and using what's called these mini units, which I'm about to, it needs access. Some of these Google sites are older because I think the I3 grant in the program's kind of gone by the wayside. But a lot of these mini units, I started using this, and you can see the topics here. Teen Brains, I didn't personally teach that one, but I did teach reality TV. Online privacy was a very good one that I had success with. I think I did school start time. There's some other ones that I did on wild horses that I think are on something else. You can see there's plenty of other sources up here, like Argument Highway by Leanne Borderline. She's awesome. I met her at the National Writing Project too. But anyway, there are so many good resources on here that I've used that I taught in my classroom. And then at the end of the year, when I assess my students again on how they made moves with their language, like Joseph Harris talks about here, making moves with evidence with his book, you know, this here gives a snippet. This is actually from the National Writing Project. I saw that my students were making those moves in their writing with evidence. They were including, not only were they giving, you know, a rundown of the author's ideas, but they were adding and extending and even countering what was being said there. And that's what I love about Joseph Harris in his text. Now, I will say it's a bit lofty. You know, I'm not saying it's not practical. It is. You have to kind of glean what you want out of here, because it's not like Gallagher and Miller's text that are much more approachable. This one is almost something you would expect to see in a college composition classroom or something like that. Very valuable, but a little bit more lofty, you know. So that would be my one criticism with this. Again, what he wants to do in this text is take students from writing, you know, the typical, you know, I, B, 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 C, the introduction, body, 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 conclusion, and take that to the next level and really looking at those body paragraphs that the students are writing and making sure that they are illustrating what they're writing about, authorizing, giving credit where credit is due, with what they're reading, borrow on some of those ideas and extend those ideas, you know, not just share what knowledge they've learned, but create new knowledge. And so Harris's text really shows students how to do that and how to get teachers to get students to do that. So that's why I really like his text quite a bit. And so my last source that I really want to go over is this one here. It's called Beyond Proving It. How C3WP helps students write nuanced arguments and purposeful commentary. This is by Kristen Smith, and basically what this is a narrative and her path into C3WP, what she used when she was going through the grant. And what I love about this source is that as a narrative, it's something that I went through myself through the program, and so I very much identify with that. As you can see, it says, help students write nuanced arguments and purposeful commentary. Going through the C3WP program really helped get my students college, career, and community ready with their writing. And Kristen Smith talks about the same thing in her article. Like it says up here, it's a narrative. So she tells you what she goes through, how she starts the year, gets involved, when they assess their students, you know, how their students are writing, you know, how this is a good one here. One student said they use sources so that they're not caught out for plagiarism. Sometimes they don't credit their sources. They're not sure what they're doing. And when she started using these mini units, and here's a good one. The text that I chose for writing into the day, that's a good one, was Unplugged. You are really teaching students to use claims. And it's funny because in her article, you can even see here, she discusses Harris moves that, you know, I just mentioned with Joseph Harris here. The Harris moves help students do more than prove it. You know, it really helps them take their writing to the next level, which I absolutely love. And so, and I think this one is about video games, the unit that she used, as it says here. The students opened up an infographic called The Neurology of Gaming and how playing video games affects different parts of the brain. And so I actually did one on video games, violence, things like that before myself. And, you know, it helps your students take it to the next level. You can see in her article, one of the things she did here with this graphic organizer was help the students connect evidence to their claim. And, you know, like I said, when I'm using Kelly Gallagher's text and I'm trying to do a CER and get them to connect their claims to evidence and then have reasoning behind that, you know, that can be pretty complicated to do. And Kristen Smith in this article tells how the National Writing Project really helped her do that. And what I love about her article the most, of course, is that I went through the College Ready Writers program myself and got to get my students to go through that, and was able to use some of these on-demand writing projects, writing into the day. You can see there's on-demand tasks, two-day tasks, different mini units to help get the kids moving in the right direction that you actually teach from. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is use these texts and these sources to help do that. And so, like I said, a lot of these Google sites that NWP has created, I think a lot of them aren't working like they used to be. But there's so many good sources that you can find when it comes to graphic organizers. There's samples of student writing, to help students connect their evidence to their claim, and then extend it, and then even counter what's there sometimes. So that's why I like Kristen Smith's article, is because I can identify it, because I went through the C3WP College Community Career Writers program. And so that's why I included her article in my top 5. So I hope you've enjoyed. And then, of course, at the end here, I've got my reference page. I've posted my annotated bib for all to see. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out these sources, because they are very valuable, regardless of what subject area you teach in. Whether you are going to be a mentor teacher, a content area a master teacher, whatever your plans are for the future, these texts are very, very helpful. There's some in my annotated bibliography that I did not necessarily include in my top 5s, but anything by Fisher, as you can see here, close reading and writing from sources, Fisher and Frey, you can't go wrong with their sources. So please take a look at both the annotated bibliography. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope everybody has a great semester, great Christmas. Thank you for taking this class with me. See you later.